First car we had was the EK9, so Honda made that for Japan only. It was the first Civic Type R they ever made, and they made it between 1997 and 2000. It had a 1.6 litre engine with about 180 horsepower. To drive, that's quite an interesting experience. The engine is a proper VTEC engine. Like when you get to 6,000 or 6.5, you can feel it kick in. That whole phrase "kick in, yo," has never been more appropriate than in that car. If you want to get a proper experience of VTEC, drive an EK9. You can just feel it. It's not dead. You're still moving, but then when it gets to 6, it just takes off. It's hilarious fun. And the car we were in as well had a ridiculous exhaust on it. I wouldn't be able to live with it, but it makes a properly good noise. It's really loud. Yeah, it's just nuts. The gearbox was really, really gorgeous. It was a very short shift, and it's got a little titanium shifter on it that apparently costs like 400 quid to replace, so quite expensive, but it felt really, really nice. What really felt old, perhaps, was the steering. So it was quite light, just off centre, and wasn't very accurate. It's only when you start to go through corners that it starts to weigh up a little bit. The next car we had was the EP3. So Honda made that between 2001 and 2005, and this was the next generation of Type R, the first one that was available in the UK as like a standard Type R. They made the jump from a 1.6 to a 2 litre, so it had 200 horsepower and weighed about 60 kilos more, so not that much heavier, but with 20 more horsepower and a bigger engine. The steering in the EP3 is a bit heavier than the EK9, and it feels like a more modern steering system, so it's more accurate, it's slightly heavier, there's none of this kind of uncertainty on the centre of the steering wheel. Then finally it was the FN2, so this was the 3rd gen Type R, and it's the one that we all know as the one that looks like a spaceship, with the triangle exhaust and the cool little arrowhead door handles. The FN2 is a very different car. It feels a lot bigger and it weighs a lot more, but they kept the same 2 litre engine, so 201 horsepower, so that's 1 extra horsepower. Performance is pretty much the same, but it just feels a lot bigger. If I was going to live with one, out of the EK9, the EP3 and the FN2 every single day, because it's a much newer car and it's got so much more equipment. I think driving those cars back to back, the EK9 to the EP3 feels a very evolutionary thing. They feel similar size-wise, the engines are slightly different, but they're not hugely different. Step into the FN2 and it doesn't really feel like a natural evolution. It feels like as if they kind of went, right, let's start again at this Type R, let's keep the same engine, but let's just do it slightly differently, make it bigger, make it more comfortable, give it some more kit. And then the FK2 feels like an evolution of that. So they've gone, let's change the engine again, and let's give it a bit more kit, but let's make it even more nuts. This is the new Honda Civic Type R. This has been out a year now, and this is quite a big departure from the Type Rs before. So rather than a naturally aspirated, VTEC engine, it's a 2 litre VTEC engine, but it's turbocharged. So rather than 200 horsepower, you've got 306. That is quite a big difference. 0 to 60 takes 5.7 seconds, and the top speed is 168 miles an hour. That is very rapid, and I can tell you now, from having been with this car for the last week or so, it would be very, very easy to get in a lot of trouble very quickly in this car. I just love how no matter what speed you want to get up to, it's like, oh, you want to join a motorway, do you? Done. One of the biggest differences, I think, between this and the previous Type R, the FN2, is just how much front end grip it's got. So in that car, you could always, even in the dry, as well as the wet, you could start to feel the front end push. Whereas in this, there's just so much front end grip, way more than I expected. It just points and goes. Our Type R day was ridiculous fun, but which one's best? I'll leave that up to you.